Often copied, but never duplicated. What's up, team? I got with me Mr. John Mikish, 2,300?
2,300, yeah.
2,300 agents
2,300
in the organization with eXp. I've been with eXp going on 20 months, 274 agents in the organization, trying to be like...
That's amazing growth though, dude, in your time.
Trying to be like this guy when I grew up. We have conversations regularly because teamwork makes the dream work.
Yeah.
And collaboration is the new currency. And we have conversations regularly with agents. A lot of these agents are highly productive. They're looking to have conversations and potentially make a change from a traditional firm, or one that is a traditional firm that pretends that they're not. Right? And so we were talking off camera about how amazing it is that most agents don't read ICAs. They don't actually...
Well, did you read your last update to your iPhone agreement? Like it comes through, you just like click, click, click.
Oh, that's true, dude. We
don't ever read that stuff.
Yeah. And in reading it though, you can really get a clear understanding of what that brokerage firm's business model is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or I would even say this, what their future intentions are for that business. Because, I'll talk to real agents a lot, right? And they don't even know what they can't do. Their independent contractor agreement says that they can't offer out any free leads, any free coaching, any type of additional support, anything to encourage an agent to maybe sign up with that company and name them as their sponsor. Their independent contractor agreement literally says they can't do it. They can't throw events, they can't do lunch and learns, they can't do anything. Now, we know a lot of agents are doing those things, but my question to them is, what happens when they enforce it?
Yeah.
Like, are you willing to risk everything you're going to build so that one day they say, hey, you've been in violation of this all along, now we're taking that away from you?
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting that it's in the agreement and other people are doing it, but they're just like, okay, why? Because that's what you have to do in order to, to really attract and add value. And I think it also is handicapping an agent from being entrepreneurial.
Yes.
And adding value. Because my experience in this game is it's relationships plus value over time.
Yeah, I think, when people come in second and they're like, I'm going to copy this but make it quote unquote better.
Yeah.
What they typically do is they'll look at the landscape and they'll find where are the complainers, where are people disgruntled, like what is that? And one of the things that they'll say about eXp sometimes is that it's siloed, like that's the word that they use. He's like, well, there's all these big organizations in the company and everybody's competing for the agents. And to one extent that's true, but I don't really find it to be a problem. Like when I worked at RE/MAX for 5 years, we were a very high producing RE/MAX. We had top agents in our market, on many different levels. And I would find that most of the time when I was competing for a listing, I was competing against another RE/MAX agent. We were the best brokerage in town. So to me, it was just like part of the deal. Like I have to sell myself at the end of the day. The company that I'm with is the opportunity that I'm running my business on. But whether that's me selling real estate at RE/MAX or me building rev share at eXp, like at the end of the day, like I'm selling me.
Yeah.
And if I can't sell me, what am I selling?
Yeah.
All I can sell is the company then. And so, I'll use Real as an example. I think that there's a lot of things that they are claiming to be that are either in direct conflict to what their independent contractor says they actually are, or it's just not true. And they're saying, well, we know that some eXp agents were mad that this didn't work out perfectly for them. And that's going to happen in any business, especially when growing as fast as ours. But I just, when we look at who innovated this space, Glenn Sanford innovated it, he changed it, right? It's never going to be the same. Yeah. Real's going to come along. There's going to be countless other companies like them that are going after a revenue share, profit sharing model, if you will. And really we could say, hey, Glenn innovated it through revenue share, but he really took it out of a page of the playbook that was Keller Williams with profit share. He just got into profit share and realized it didn't make any sense. Yeah. He had 1,800 people and nobody was making money.
And recognized that rev share exists in that model. It just goes to a very, very, very small group of individuals.
That's correct.
That's really what's true. And to your point, I had this awareness hearing Glenn today speak that he's the one that's actually innovated. Yep. He's the one that created something new. So these other models that are coming behind it are copycats.
Yes.
No matter what they say.
Yep.
And what they're doing is tinkering with perhaps like some numbers and put a different color and flag on it and say, oh, this is new.
Yeah.
When in fact, it's not new at all.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, one of my favorite things that I get if I'm like out there and, I'm talking to somebody and they're like, well, I heard Real was good and, I'm looking at eXp, but they've been around for a while. And they're like, I'm going to go with Real because they're like the new thing and I'm going to have an opportunity similar to what the opportunity was with eXp. And I just find that hilarious because here's the deal. If you've ever read the book, The Blue Ocean Strategy, it's all about this concept of a new business model is outside of the box of the norm and it's a blue ocean, like it's, plentiful feeding and it's just clear blue water. But then what happens is when somebody sees that they're having success over there, they all want a piece of that pie too. And that's what we're seeing in our industry now. People like Real, people like Epic, LPT, these new companies are coming in, basically copying our model, saying that they're gonna do what we did. But how does that make sense when we did what we did in a blue ocean and it's now a red ocean? Meaning you now will never have that blue ocean space again because we've changed the model. And until somebody changes the model again, somehow, some way, we're in a red ocean now.
That's right.
So if you think you're gonna step into this competitive market space where you have companies like eXp that dominate, that are super profitable, and you're gonna have the same trajectory inside of that red ocean, you're very misguided.
It's an unrealistic expectation.
Very unrealistic.
And I think what they're being sold is this idea that like the product is what's going to cause that to happen. It's like, well, wait a minute. The product is a copycat of another product. It's like coming out with another kind of flavor of Coke or something.
Right.
Like you tinkered with the recipe. It's like, oh, we're great. We're going to be just as big as Coke. It's like, well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
And I also hear, it's because it seems like a talking point. Like one was the silo. The other talking point I hear is like, well, it's oversaturated.
Yeah.
And to that, I'm like, well, okay, I appreciate that. At the same time, I've been with the company for 20 months. And currently our organization sits at 274 agents. Like, is it oversaturated? There are people in my market that have like 1,000 agents, 2,000 agents. And we're still growing and building.
Yeah, and it's global, so there's countries that we're just going into now that we literally just opened. So ground floor, huge opportunity, and we're getting like our first couple hundred agents there, and there's room to go to 100,000 very conservatively in that country. When we talk about Brazil and New Zealand and Spain, like these countries have enormous opportunity and we just got there. So, we're going to 100 countries, we're going to 1 million agents worldwide, we're at 90,000. We're still very much as an industry at the left side of that bell curve.
Yes.
Because, hey, there's room for everybody. Like I believe that other companies can be successful in this space. It's just then it gets into like brass tacks of like, where are you most likely to be the most successful?
Correct.
And have the greatest opportunity. And when we start laying out the different bullet points of eXp and what they offer, I don't think anybody comes close. We pay out on 7 levels. A lot of copycat companies are only paying out on 5. We pay more. When we look at these other copycat companies and we're like, well, what are you guys making over there? And we see like, oh, the number one person in that company, in their model, in revenue share, makes less than some of my people in my organization make in a month, in a year. What are you doing? What's your opportunity? So I think these are all important things that we have to consider. And I would just say this, what are you gonna build? Because at the end of the day, these companies are platforms now. That's what they are. And you can stand alone and the platform can be your whole opportunity and it can be your whole front and center. But I would argue that you should be branding and building you.
100%.
And our company supports that not only from an infrastructure side, but they actually encourage it.
Yeah, support and encourage. And I think the false misperception is people imagining that a product will do all of that for you. And it's not. Well, it's accurate because the model's the model, right?
That's
so,
right.
So Instagram is a platform, YouTube is a platform, TikTok is a platform. And people imagine because they sell them like a product, yo, you're gonna blow up. But the truth is like, you have to be talented, you have to add a lot of value, you have to put time, energy, effort, and resources, you have to take risk, right? Like that's what's gonna actually cause that to compound and multiply.
Right. I mean, it's a leadership opportunity at the end of the day. And, I think that's why a lot of us who are leading brokerages, like an independent like I had, or you were leading teams, like you were leading before you came to eXp, we're just transferring that leadership to a new opportunity with much more greater rewards. So I love it. I feel firmly that we have the proven leadership. No other company in our space has proven leadership yet. And there's a big difference between growing from, 0 to 10,000 versus 10,000 to 20,000 versus 20,000 to 50,000. Like those periods of great growth also come with a great cost.
Yeah.
Like the cost of scaling at those different points is difficult. Most companies don't make it. We've not only gotten through it, but through it all, our leadership has always made the right decisions for us and to protect our opportunity. And to me, that carries a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. Are there agents that are at any company that maybe are less than desirable? Absolutely. There's people in the real estate industry that are less than desirable, but that doesn't mean that I get out of the industry. So we can't use some of these things that they say as excuses. We, at the end of the day, need to show up and say, what did I do? What did I build? And how am I going to see a vision for myself and my people in the future? And we need to lead them into that.
Yeah, I love that. It really is about leadership and duplication. So I think that you're one of the most learned on models. You understand them very well. You study them. So maybe what we could do for the agents or whoever's watching is just talk very specifically brass tacks of differences. Because I find it incredibly frustrating when agents come on a call and they're like, oh, like this is the same.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, dude, it's not. So let's take on a case-by-case basis, because I know the comp plan is drastically different.
So one of the biggest things about the comp plan that's a little bit harder to quantify and reconcile with on the front end is that we get paid out on 7 levels and Real gets paid out on 5 levels.
And explain why that's such a huge difference. I understand.
Yeah. So, in the beginning, you're not going to have people on your 6th and 7th level. But as it grows, as it builds, you're going to have a lot of people on those lower levels. In a mature organization with proper compounding, those are going to be the biggest levels you have. Case in point, above me, so I'm part of somebody's 7th levels, right? Above me, I have the top 6 people in the world for eXp. Okay? When you talk to those 6 people, across the board, 80% of the income that they make today comes from their levels 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Now, let's just rewind the tape a minute. Let's say they had built at a competitor's company and they had 5 levels. And let's just say, for simple math, let's just say that one opportunity with 7 levels pays $1 million a year. But 80% of that income is coming from levels 6 and 7. That means if you went to the company that had 5 levels, instead of making $1 million, you'd make 200,000.
It's wild. And I think what is important for people to understand is the reason why the 6th and the 7th are the biggest is because of compounding.
Correct.
Because I know what Real has said is like, well, what we're going to do is you'll make more money on the first couple levels.
Yeah.
Because it's like, the way I described it to somebody recently, I'm like, it's like a magic trick. It's like, hey, don't pay attention to the 6th and 7th. You know what I'm saying?
No, they want to distract you from that.
And what I'm aware of is that those first 2, particularly the first, is dependent on your personal efforts.
Yes.
And I mean, I've been coming to these events now for 2 years, and it is exceptionally rare to find somebody that has personally attracted 50 to 100 agents.
Totally.
It's very, very
handful
rare.
of people in the whole company.
Like a handful of people in the whole company. So what
I'm actually proud of the opposite of that. When I show people kind of like what my journey's been here at eXp, I'm like, hey, you're a top producer, you're a top team leader, you run an amazing brokerage. This is kind of what it's like, is everything in your life is dependent on your effort. But at eXp, it's not.
Right.
And I think that's the most beautiful thing. When I look at my organization today, over 2,300 people, my personal efforts, the people that I recruited, represent 1.7% of what I get paid on today.
Which is so important in terms of comp plan and models.
Yes.
So that's what's important that I wanted to bring up. So if there's an agent out there who's listening to this and considering different models, if rev share is part of your plan,
yes,
if it's part of your retirement process, if it's part of getting you off the transaction treadmill, then this is very, very important.
Yeah, and this is like one of 10 key points.
Yeah.
I think though, what I'll get sometimes is like revenue share is not that important to me.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I've heard come up lately is like our competitors are trying to get the focus off of revenue share because they know our model is superior.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we're like one big happy family over here. And it's like, we are too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that I wouldn't do. I've flown across the country to events for you and whatnot. We are too. And some of our organizations are bigger than these other entire companies.
Yes.
So siloed or not, like, we're all there for each other and we're all there to help each other. But it really matters that, like, you start to think through revenue share, because, you know, the reason that these companies exist, the reason that we're all here today, is because we've done it the way without revenue share. We got burnt out. We were on the hamster wheel.
Appreciate you waiting. Jose had me waiting because this is East Coast, West Coast. And we had to get this emergency meeting popping because we got all these people texting us, emailing us. And I wanted to get together some powerful leaders in the elite builders so we can address this head on. In the 18 years I was selling real estate, things changed as far as like how the business is done in terms of technology. This is a fundamental structural change to the business. At the same time, what I'm aware of is that our industry is very, adaptive. I know that with these changes, people who pivot will actually, I think, do better and actually make more money. So the question is just, how are we going to pivot? So for those of you who, I think everybody knows Jose in the baby blue right now, looking smooth and easy in the baby blue.
I'm wearing cowboy boots. You guys want to see?
Hey, God. Oh,
wow.
Shows me well, I'm just wearing underwear, bro, so I can't stand up. and then we got the powerful Vicente Arzata, our resident kind of contract specialist. So welcome, guys. I'm excited to hop on this live. I felt it was important as a leader to just kind of address it head on. So I guess the first thing we can start with is that I did a post maybe like 2 months ago where I said, hey, I think with a very high degree of probability here in the perhaps distant future or not so distant future, buyer's agents will have to negotiate a portion, if not all of their fee. And, two things came from this particular settlement, which, by the way, it has to be approved by the judge, hasn't been approved yet. Let's say it does. We'll go with the assumption that it will. There were two main changes that were agreed to. One was that compensation can no longer be put in MLS for a buyer's agent. Now, it did not say you cannot offer compensation to a buyer's agent. It just said that it can't be put in the multiple listing service. And what I'm aware of is for commercial real estate, a lot of transactions are done without the commission being put anywhere. And when somebody makes an offer, they kind of do an LOI, a letter of intent. And in that offer is the purchase sales price and also the professional fee that the buyer's agent is looking to get on that sale. And then it becomes a negotiation. The second rule is that if you do work with buyers, you must have a buyer broker's agreement kind of authorized. I think the goal and objective there is to have upfront conversations in terms of compensation and what that's going to look like. So Vicente, you've been selling real estate longer than me and Jose, probably combined. So talk to me a little bit about your first kind of reaction to those two rule changes.
Thank you, Aaron. This is something that has been going on in the brewing in the back burner for a long time, and technology and changes to the industry are the ones that are causing this. I'm in my third decade as a realtor, so I've seen a lot, especially after the year 2000. You call it that little thing they call the internet. So that brought a lot of changes. And I recall a conversation that we had a couple of years ago where I shared with you that the power shifting on the real estate relationships in the 60s and before, when organized real estate was put together, the power was really in the hands of the brokerage. Then with the birth of the internet, the power shifted to the hands of the agents. But now with Internet 4.0 or higher, the power is shifting to the hands of the consumer. So how do is this change, this Burnett lawsuit and the settlement is going to affect our industry? First, like you say, it's going to be a different conversation between the seller and the listing agent.
A much more, I believe, skilled and professional conversation.
Correct.
Yeah, and I believe that one of the things I wrote down is that buyer's agents up until now have actually never had to come up with a formal presentation, the majority of them, a formal presentation demonstrating what value they bring to the transaction, right? And I think that one of the byproducts of this is that a lot of agents, the vast majority of agents are buyer heavy. 60-70% of their transactions are on the buy side. So a lot of those agents, I think, will perhaps not have the capacity or the bandwidth to make that pivot, right? Or have those skills. I think the ones that do pivot, do have a formal presentation and basically list buyers, will actually make the same, if not perhaps a little bit more, as long as they can demonstrate the fact that they add value to the transaction and specifically how they add value. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, because for the better part of my career, 25 years, then you sat down with the seller and you had an exclusive agreement for compensation, but majority of the buyers didn't. And the level of skill, that's something that I've learned from you over the years, that the level of skill necessary to represent a buyer was not really, Mike Ferry used to call it a glorified door openers.
Yeah.
And that is going to have to change. That this lawsuit changes that.
Well,
The skill will get paid.
Well, here's what I wanted to, and this was new to me. I actually didn't know this, but Vicente shared this with me off camera. I think, Vicente, you said that this that has already happened in other countries, meaning that like it's already happened. Did you say in France, or did you say like where has this happened? Because it's funny, because if you look around sometimes, something that maybe appeared new to us may have already happened somewhere else. So like, do you have any insight on where that happened? Any insight on how that works in France or some of these different countries?
It is a great question, Jose Luis. The fact that France is already operating that way, and also Australia is happening, with the transactions have decoupled the compensation from the seller into the buyer's agent. And that's one of my questions. My question is, like, what does this lawsuit does to an already wounded U.S. real estate market?
Yeah,
and that we still have to see.
Well,
where
I think
the actual market.
But I think that there is. I love that we're doing this. By the way, it's so cool to like try and get ideas of believable people. So I think that with a high degree of probability, being that volume has already gone down 19, like depending on geographic area last year, 19 to 30%, depending on where it was, 6 million to 4 million transactions. And let's say the majority of buy sides, I mean, the majority of agents are buy side heavy, 60-70% of their deals are on the buy side. I also think a byproduct of this is over time, let's say over a 5 to 10 year time span, I do think professional fees will come down over time as a result of the decoupling, right? Now, I also think that as a ramification of this, one of the things I wrote down is that teams that are focused on buy side, because what the model has been since the internet, which was the last structural change to the business, right? Because it used to be like nobody had any information about real estate, and real estate agents had basically a monopoly of information. Well, that got decoupled, that got decentralized, right? Democratized with the internet. And then the model became buy leads and then offer out, and then work the buy side leads, because the majority of those leads are buyers. And that works when you know that you can expect let's say, all commissions are negotiable. We're all aware of that. Let's say a 2 to 3% commission on the buy side. That model functions. When that changes with a very high degree of probability, that has a problem with that model, because I know that the majority of teams don't operate on
just listings,
like really fundamental good economics, where the team lead usually is in production, right? Because they need to be in order to be profitable, and the team itself doesn't actually, they operate on very thin profit margins. So if that revenue drops by a third, that makes that model problematic over time.
Vicente,
Yes.
when there was the MLS book before, did they advertise the
Hey, I feel like we just went to a cave and we were like, tell us, old man, did you used to use tablets when you...
Yeah.
So, and the
We
reason
actually-
I ask is there was a video by Glenn Sanford today, and he was talking about how before, I think he said something about that the buyer's agent compensation wasn't advertised at some point, or it was on the list. So he said something that I didn't quite understand.
Okay.
So I kind of wanted to ask the wise Vicente.
And it's a great question. In my experience, my opinion, what I remember is that the buyer's compensation was not advertised. It was not
in the book
anywhere until the
Oh, it
birth
was
of
not.
the MLS in the early
until
2000s.
the MLS came about. So
When the
basically,
MLS
reason
came
I was-
about, then cooperating agreements and share compensation was advertised. Then in the midst of settling this lawsuit, one of the things that NAR and Zillow and Milo and Willow and Truly and Zulia did is they began publishing the buyer's agent's commission as a way to appease this lawsuit. And now that this settlement changes that. Okay, so another
it also,
brutal
what I'm
change,
aware
Aaron,
of-
another brutal change to the market, right? When I started, the MLS changed the market. Zillow changed the market. Now this lawsuit changes the market again.
And I think one of the things I wrote down too is that Zillow's model is very much so in jeopardy as a result, because their model is they take our data, sell it back to us, so agents will make money on the buy side transactions, and they can charge 30-40% referral fees with like Zillow Flex and whatnot. At the same time, though, what I just mentioned in terms of the economics of that no longer makes sense if I don't know that I can expect a 2 to 3% commission on the buy side.
Right.
So
And
it'll be,
here is something else, Aaron. CoStar bought Homes.com. How much they invest millions and millions of dollars. They had 3 commercials at the Super Bowl, and their model is based on feeding off the agents. They get
giving all the
consumer,
leads
they get
back
the
to the...
consumer. They became the middleman. They get the consumer, and then buyers agents buy these leads, and their model, believe it or not, is based on the agents will not call those leads. So I discovered that these big companies, they sell leads to 5 different agents on the same market, the same leads, and that's how they make tons of money.
Yeah, I think
But
there was
again,
a statistic where like they sold like something crazy, like I don't know, like 20 million leads, but there were only like 4 million transactions in the year, right? Or 100 million leads, something crazy like that. Well,
So
and what
that's how
Homes.com
the
does
business-
is that they give all the leads back to the listing agent,
they changed it.
which I can understand why agents would like that. Now, I'm also curious to see, and then we can talk about kind of strategically some things that people can be doing, right? So first, I think it makes sense. Like, hey, what do I think will be first level consequence, second level consequences, and then as a practicing real estate agent, how do I need to start presenting?
Beautiful,
right? Like, how do I need to start presenting on the listing side? How can I demonstrate value on the buy side, and that sort of thing. So, the other thing that I wrote down here is that smaller brokerages are going to get like hammered. So people who have like 60 agents, like 100 agents or less, like they're going to get hammered because they were already having a hard time from an economic perspective. But if revenue has the potential of going down, they're going to have to, and every brokerage is really like involved in these lawsuits. So they have to spend some sort of resources or time or money to fight them or to pay. And that takes time away and resources for adding value to agents and investing in technology and also not doing mergers and acquisitions. So I think what will happen is they will have to move to models where they can get rid of expenses like cloud-based models, which we are at the E to X. Hey,
eXp.
I believe that will happen too. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I think that you're absolutely right. See, everything is commission based, and one of my mentors said that realtors, we are the piece of meat between the two breads.
Yeah.
So as commissions are under pressure because it's the money that is in the middle.
Jose thought that was funny for some reason. I don't know why. He's such a little kid, bro.
He has heard me say this before.
You said the meat between two breads, and he was like, ha 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 ha.
You didn't think that was funny? Come on,
one of my title reps calls them Vicenteisms. But anyways, moving forward, because the commissions are under fire. I saw this coming a long time ago. And I've always, throughout my career, Jose knows this, I've been extremely fond of buyers because that moral salary that gives you, seeing them put the key on their first home and help them build wealth, and having called me after 20 years and say, I want you to represent my daughter because you help us with this. And that is cool, right? But what happens to the skill? I remember that we used to give guarantees. A client, if I am the consumer, Aaron, and I want representation, I want to see value. Now that I'm gonna have to pay, I have to see value. We had these conversations over and over with listing sellers, where they say, okay, I'm interviewing 3 agents. Where's your value?
That's right.
And so then the ability to represent that value, and then getting the contract.
Yeah,
but I think we're assuming that listing agents and sellers aren't going to provide compensation anymore.
No, I agree with you. I think that they will. And I think that they'll do it in one of two ways. I think they'll do it either creatively by offering concessions, because you are allowed to offer concessions. Yeah. So let's say you're like, hey, I'm going to offer like a $10,000 closing cost concessions, but that'll help the buyer to pay perhaps a little bit of the buyer's agent's professional fee. I think you can also, as a listing agent, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves in terms of like what you can do, is now we've been talking about this for like a year, like presenting with options. So it's like, listen, we have a few options at our disposal in terms of compensation, and it is a tool that we use to market the property in terms of, exposure, right? Obviously, what we offer out or what we choose to offer out, whether it's a mixture of concessions or perhaps a little bit in terms of the compensation for the buyer's agent, that will increase the probability that we can get more views, which ultimately is going to end up with you netting the most money possible. So we're going to go over the options that you have, and I want you to feel completely comfortable with whatever we end up choosing. You're the boss, and I'll support you 100%. Now you have a menu of options. So a menu on the listing side could be, whatever it is in your geographic area, but let's say it's like, okay, let's say it's 2%. Again, all commissions are negotiable. So let's say it's 2%. And you're like, all right, well, at 2%, this is what you get. You get, kind of the basic stuff, right? Now, let's say it could be 2.5%. At 2.5, we add some things. Maybe we add a Matterport. Maybe we add this, we add that. Then at 3%, it's the full Monty, right? We'll have an appraisal done before we put it on the market. We'll pay for the appraisal. We'll have an inspection done. We'll give you up to $1,000 for whatever comes up in the inspection, plus what you get at the 2.5 and the 2, right? So it's a menu of options.
We've saved the best for last. Give him a huge round of applause to Aaron Novello.
Grown ups, in between, churning babies.
I know you've been sitting for a while. You can stand up, kind of shake it out, right? Move it out a little bit.
I'm frequently asked on panels or on podcasts if I have any regrets during my 17-year career selling real estate in high volume, coaching some of the top agents in the country, some of them here in this room. And I was thinking about it recently. Somebody asked me, so I took the time to really, really think about it. And I came up with 2. And I would like to be vulnerable, just like our boy Jose was vulnerable in the room, and share them with you because I feel very comfortable with you guys. Would that be okay? Yes. Okay, good. So the first regret is taking us back to 2011, okay? 2011, I'd been selling real estate for 4.5 years. I was maniacally and obsessively pursuing a goal of hitting 100 transactions a year, okay? It consumed all of my being. I gave blood, sweat, and tears, right, to accomplish it. And we're in the month of October.
and I'm close. I'm like right there. All I have to do is just finish strong, okay? That's all I gotta do. And Halloween is approaching. My son is 1 year old, okay? It's his first Halloween. And I'm like, all right, I want to go to the Halloween and do trick-or-treating, but I got this goal of 100 deals, and I'm close. So I schedule an appointment for Halloween at 4:30. Because I figure, yeah, look at the moms, they're like, Because I figure, what's up, brother? I figure, you know, I'm a trained professional. I'll be in and out in 30 minutes. Contract signed, move on, right? I'll be back. My wife's like, are you sure? I'm like, I got this. So I sit down at the listing appointment, and it's like a $100,000 listing, like not 55 and older, not anything fantastic, but it gets me closer to the 100, right? And I sit down, and an instantaneous when I sit down, have you guys ever seen those memes that are like, at this moment, he realized he fucked up, okay? As soon as I sit down, he's a talker's talker, okay? He is telling me his whole life story from start to finish. He does not breathe for 35 minutes. But then, to put the icing on top of it, I find out as he's blabbing and telling me his whole life story that he is a retired negotiator for unions. Anybody who's been on appointments know, as soon as you hear that shit, I was like, oh my God. He is somebody whose identity is wrapped up into negotiating and getting a good deal. But then I have Halloween happening behind me. So I'm like, all right, let's get to it. I do the presentation. We get to the part about commissions. Your boy's a trained professional. We go round and round in a circle for like 40 minutes because he's a retired union negotiator. And finally, exasperated and frustrated, I'm just pissed off at this point, and I get up and leave. Okay? It's dark out. I didn't get the listing, and I also didn't get an opportunity to witness Sebastian's first Halloween. You'll notice in this picture, the people that are here. That is my mom. That is my wife, Carla. That is Sebastian, who greeted you guys. Who is missing from that picture? Because I wasn't there. Okay? The second regret happened more recently, and it happened as a result of somebody in this room. I was on a coaching call with Lars. He was my coach. Coaches get coached. And he likes to start his coaching calls in a very interesting way, something that I was not accustomed to, nor did I like. Because I'm a hard-charging type A personality. So he would say, hey, I want you to give me professional wins. And I'm like, great, got that. Then he's like, personal wins. And on the personal wins, guys, struggles. Grasping at straws, like groping, like I had nothing. Professional wins, though, guess what? Got along with this, right? And finally, Lars is like, he's so gracious, but he finally is like exasperated with me. And he's like, look, dude, if you don't come back to the next call with a personal win, we're not going to do this anymore. As a hard charger, he got my attention. Okay, he means business. He's not fucking around, right? So I proceed to start to pay attention and look for a personal win. And I am so excited because I got one. I'm like, ask me that question. I'm ready, right? So I'm like, yeah, like get past the professional wins. Just ask me the personal one. I'm ready. So he's like, personal wins. I'm like, I got it. I went to my son's soccer game. Now, to put that in the context, the year previously, I had only gone to one of his soccer games at school. Now, the reason is because they're at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That would mean I don't have to stop what I'm doing at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, drive to Summit Cuesta, watch the game, pretend like I'm watching it, fucking, and then drive back, right? Totally interrupt me doing all my transactions. So I'm like, yeah, dude, I went to this game, and I'm like so proud. I'm like, I went to my son's soccer game. But then I shared with him, I was like, playfully, here's Sebastian's reaction. When he saw me at the game, he went like this. He was shocked. When I said that to Lars, I was joking, playing. I was like, yeah, bro. He was like this. Bro, Lars looked at me through Zoom into my soul. And he said to me, That's terrible. I'd never had anybody speak to me in that way. If you ever got the wind knocked out of you, that's what that question felt like to me, or that statement. And I didn't know what the way is, but I was going to find the way or make the way. Right? I had turned myself into the type of person that can sell 2,000 homes, 80% of that business listing sold, do it year after year after year after year, 100 deals a year, 10 years in a row, 200 deals a year twice. It was no longer acceptable to me to trade off what I was trading off in my personal life. It was not acceptable anymore. But I didn't know what the way was. Have you ever in a personal context or a professional context said, I don't know what the way is, but I'm gonna either find the way or make the fucking way? Anybody besides me? Yeah, that's the state that you need to get yourself into. And that question and some other things helped me to get in that state, because in the right state, you'll come up with the right story and the right strategy. As a coach, people come to us and want to talk about strategy, but it's really about your state of being, because in the right state, you'll figure it out. So I was in the right state, but I didn't know what to do. So what I did is I surrounded myself with the best coaches, the best trainers, the best mentors, some of these people that are in this room. Because I believe you're one relationship away from changing your family tree for the rest of your life. We heard that from Jose. And some of those relationships, I was that relationship for him, one of them, but Lars and John are those relationships for me. Okay? And I really started to think about leverage, really started to look at different vehicles, different strategies, different approaches, because a lazy mind's answer is just to work harder. Listen to what I just said to you. All you guys grew up in families that 65% of us live paycheck to paycheck. You heard shit like money doesn't grow on, eat all the food on your, and a penny saved is a penny, which is horseshit because it's a penny. And if you want it done, you got to do it guys, isn't it funny that like we all are like chanting the same thing, like the Pledge of Allegiance? It's just programming, guys. But look at the people who gave you that programming. What are their lives like? Difficult. Right? This is true. So I got access to the best trainers, the best coaches, the best mentors, really expanded my thinking, started thinking about vehicles differently, started thinking about leverage it differently. And in the calendar year of 2023, I only missed one of Sebastian's soccer games. I have not sold one piece of real estate in 13 months. And my residual income from investments in RevShare supersedes my living expenses by a factor of 2. Now, I believe everybody in this room, okay, with the right strategy, the right proximity, the right understanding of this vehicle, okay, and the right understanding of leverage, you can do anything I've done in half the time, okay? I spent the last 17 years of my career selling 2,000 properties, right? Starting a coaching company, 100 coaching clients, 12 of which make over $1 million a year. All of that was to prepare me for this. You can spend a whole lifetime preparing yourself for one opportunity, and I'm telling you, this is it. So I'm going to share with you 3 things today, okay? The first one is I'm going to give you examples of other companies that do RevShare. You just don't realize it or think about it. And I promise you, when I share them with you, you'll know them immediately, okay? The second thing we're going to have a brief conversation about is actual leverage, because there's different forms and different types. And truthfully, until 19 months ago, I had a rudimentary understanding of leverage. And I would propose most of you do in this room, okay? We're going to talk about this thing called the opportunity ladder. And you can start to ask yourself a question where you are on the opportunity ladder. And then I'll show you what this vehicle has done for me. Who's up for this? Say aye. Aye. Let's go. One more time. Who's up for this? Say aye. Aye. That's what I'm talking about. Good. So the first person we're going to talk about that has participated in a RevShare opportunity is this guy. How many people know who this guy is? Yeah. Okay, so you may have a goat, but that doesn't make him the goat. This guy is the goat. Okay? Now, most people don't realize is the vast majority of his wealth was created via RevShare.
Okay, without realizing it, you realize like if you started doing 10 times what you're doing now, that people around you probably wouldn't like it?
Yeah.
You realize that other people would come to you like this? Can I have some, please?
More of your time.
would you realize that you probably actually have to lose friends and people? Do you see what I'm saying? So subconsciously, without even realizing it, that's what's underneath the stalling thing. So what I was doing, this one used to plague me all the time. So even though my wife is pregnant, I know it's coming, and yet I'm doing nothing. I'm stalling. Do you see what I'm saying? So give me an example of something that you've stalled on. Just be honest. This only works if we're honest. Yeah.
Transaction coordinator.
Good. I love that. So stalling on hiring transaction. And what is the story that you rationalize and tell yourself to make that make sense?
I can keep control of it. I don't have to give it to somebody else. What if they make a mistake?
Got it. So what if they make a mistake? What's underneath that?
Bad training.
I don't trust people. You notice the energy in the room right now?
Sorry, guys. Thank you.
And or I don't have a system that I trust. You know what's interesting? Memory is not a system. Let me ask you guys a question. How many very successful business people do you know that have 0 employees? Oh, that's right. The answer is none. Do you understand? But 65% of us grew up in families that live paycheck to paycheck. That was my experience. I'm seeing some heads nodding, right? So do you know, because of that, do you know what we heard all the time? Money doesn't grow on
Trees.
Wow, you guys went to the same school, huh? Eat all the food on your
Plate.
Oh, interesting. And a penny saved is a penny? Which is bullshit because it's just a penny. And here's the one that got you. You ready? And gets a lot of us. If you want something done right, you got to do it Guys, I need you to think about everybody who ever said that to you. What is their life like? It's not fantastic. Do you understand? That's an employee mentality. Do you get that? That's really what's behind this. You see? I can just do it myself. It's easy. But guess what? All of the time that you're spending, you know what you are? A high-paid assistant. You're trading $500 an hour work for $15 an hour work because underneath it, I don't trust people. Or I don't have a system that I trust. So if you want to grow, I don't care how much Tony Robbins, how much David Goggins, okay? I don't care how much YouTube you watch. Until he deals with that, will he grow? Sorry?
Nowhere.
Sorry?
No.
Does that make sense? That's just a fact. Okay? It's the way it is. So think of something right now, like the staller won't let you make big decisions. It just won't. I made a decision, guys. I sold back my interest in a company and lost $42,000, and I had to cap twice because I had 17 pendings. Do you know that this industry is set up that's basically contractual arbitrage? They know you don't read ICAs. You don't even know what that stands for, most of you guys. Independent contractor agreements, you don't even read them. They know that. And as such, what they do, they also know that 65% of you, okay, haven't, like, money's a thing. So they're like, what can we do to keep people from not going, like, leaving? Let me keep some of their money if they leave. And they don't even realize because they didn't even read it. Isn't this fantastic? But it stops you from making, if I had allowed the staller to stop me from making this decision, we wouldn't be at 325 agents. Does that make sense? So I want you to ask yourself a question. What big decision do you need to make right now that the staller's wreaking havoc on? We heard one. Who wants to give me one more? A big decision that the staller is not allowing you to move forward on. This is good. I feel like this is getting agents to, like, think is fantastic, right? We had to get a C on a test, have $1,000 and not be a felon. That was the requirements, guys. Yeah. Okay, good.
Applying a lead gen system, or applying into
Good.
a lead gen system.
Good.
There's moving to a different company for a better opportunity.
Yeah. So for you personally, which one? Okay. So in your mind. So here's what's interesting. He starts to like kind of verbally just vomit those things. And what I love about that, because it's honest, but do you know what that tells me? He's walking around with those thoughts in his head all the time. And the staller is like, don't do anything. Don't do anything. Don't do anything. And you impede what? Progress radically. You know, it's a shame that in school, the way that we are taught is it's bad to make a mistake. In school, to collaborate is called what? Cheating. If you're not collaborating as an adult, that's dumb. You understand? So the real way that you learn something is by trying it. And then you screw it up. And then you get better at it. If you go back, go watch my first YouTube. It was terrible. The power went out during my first podcast.
okay? The lighting's bad, it's terrible. The camera's bad. If you are not embarrassed by your first attempt, you waited too long. Just get out of the way. Not only that, nobody's paying attention to you, I promise. Like your mom's watching, nobody cares. You think everybody's gonna be like, oh my God, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Wilkins. Oh my God, you see what Wilkins posted? No. Like your auntie says that. Nobody else says it. Nobody else is even paying attention. We take ourselves way too seriously, guys. Like, nobody cares. You know what they're thinking about all the time? Themselves. That's what they're thinking about all the time. You ever hand somebody a camera and you show them a picture, what's the first thing they look at? Where the fuck am I? Where am I? They just ignore everybody else. That's the truth, okay? So this is the staller. The second assassin that gets in the way is called the speed demon. The speed demon makes you believe that you progress by making decisions as quickly as possible. You hire the first person that's standing next to you. Your aunt, your uncle, whoever. Oh, I need somebody. I'm in pain. This is stressful. You're a body that is breathing. Come work with me. Really fast, right? And then they forcefully, like they try to pick technology and make it work because they picked it really fast. They didn't do any homework. They picked a CRM and they're like, rah, this is gonna be great. I always love it when you just get overexcited about CRMs. I'm like, you realize it's not gonna help you do any more business, right? You have to actually talk to people. Never taking the time to reflect on the mistakes that they're making. And then they say things like, you know, there's no good help. You can't find good people. You know what they're really saying? I have no system for finding good people. I just whoever's standing next to me at the time. And I never reflect. Pain plus reflection equals progress. You know what the problem is? We never take the time to reflect. Anybody besides me ever made a decision too fast and it didn't work out? Everybody's hand should be up. Why did you make that decision that quickly? Do you have a group of people that I would call believable, meaning that they've produced the outcome that you wish to produce consistently over an extended period of time? And if you do, did you run it by them first? He's like, that's a novel idea. That would help me, wouldn't it? Right? But we don't do that. And we try to rush through things. So what emotion keeps us like stuck with the speed demon? Quickly making decisions.
Pain alleviation.
In what way? Explain what you mean.
This is the pain point. This might solve it. I'm just gonna run with it.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Put a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, a Band-Aid. What emotions underneath that?
Anxiety.
Yeah. Around what?
Failure.
Do you notice a common theme here?
Yeah.
We're just afraid to make mistakes. Do you think it has anything to do with sitting in class all the time? And if you made one mistake, they were like, 100% it does. Have you ever watched a little kid, like a 1-year-old? Are they afraid of making mistakes? You know why? Because it hasn't been trained into them. By the way, do they care if you cry right at them? Do they try to hide the tears? They're like, oh my God, don't look at me. No, they're like, look at me. I am crying right now. You need to do something to get me to stop. Us, we're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. You can't see me cry. Oh my. So it's fear, it's anxiety, right? Speed demon ensures that you keep making mistakes. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. And if anybody wants to volunteer, it's cool. Is there a mistake that you keep making repeatedly? What is it? Okay, so you keep making that mistake. And what is the story that you're telling yourself around follow-up?
I need new business, go find someone else. They're not ready yet.
Got it. So underneath it is a fear that there's not enough. Did you come from an environment where there's not enough? Are you afraid of that in any way? Are you afraid of like resources and needing to gather them and hoard them up? Yeah. So we all are to some degree. So what I'm aware of is that fear of there not being enough and having to gather up the resources is causing me to ignore the follow-up. Meanwhile, 70% of all the appointments will come in what? Follow-up. But because I'm so like, I'm ignoring it. Does that make sense? But and then what happens is you see, if we don't know this, you know what happens? You're like, there's something wrong with me. I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just not seeing it properly. Okay, how do you think we see things? It's not a trick question, by the way.
With your eyes.
Look, he's giving me that perception. What'd you say?
Your eyes.
Yeah, your eyes. Yeah, that's what most people would say. Right? I know you're sophisticated, bro. He's like, well, you have this ocular nerve, and like that's the way you fucking. So your eyes, right? But what if I told you that's not how you see things? Yeah, he's like, come on, man, why you gotta laugh at me like that, right? Hey, trust me, he gets it all the time.
I know it's everyone with a problem.
He gets it all the time. So. Anyway, so what if I told you that's not the way you see things? It's actually your mind that sees things. So if my mind is blind to the possibility, my eyes will be blind to the opportunity. There'll literally be something right in front of me, you just won't see it. So the reason why that keeps happening, and you think you're like, I need more accountability. He's like, how'd you know that, bro? They can't do it, any more accountability. That's not what it is, bro. It's a fear of there not being enough. That's why you keep chasing and ignoring here. Until you deal with that, that's going to keep being an issue. It's never going to go away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. But now that you're aware of it, now you can see it for what it is, right? And then you can make decisions in accordance with what's true. So the next one is the supervisor. The supervisor won't allow you to delegate things. You'll hire a TC, but then you'll end up doing the TC's work for them. He's like, don't look at me, bro. Right? You have a full-time assistant, but you take tasks away from them versus letting them do their job. Mm-hmm. Can you see how this would impede progress? Because, by the way, what do we get paid to do in this business? I know there's other businesses, but in this business, the value chain, what do we actually get paid to do? Yeah. Prospect, which leads to
Appointments.
yeah. Lead follow-up, which leads to going on appointments, which leads to negotiating deals, which leads to. Guys, I need you to be very clear. That is the only thing you get paid to do. Anything else that you're convincing yourself you get paid to do is not accurate. It's assistant work. Ta-da, you notice the energy in the room? They're like, damn it. I like going to, be with the videographer when he takes the pictures. I'm like, why are you a professional photographer? What exactly are you doing there? I go to the home inspections. Why? Are you a home inspector? What are you doing there? Yeah, I know. I was on a coaching call today and I was doing a role playing. He's like, that was good. I'm like, I know. Yeah. So what emotion gets in the way here? You hire somebody, but you don't let them do the job. You take it away from them. Huh? Yeah, trust. And fear that they're going to make a mistake and it'll make me look bad. Now I'm wondering, how long could somebody stay with the supervisor wreaking havoc on them? A whole lifetime, bro. Look at any agent in your office that does 20 deals a year. They mother them. They do everything. They're like, my clients love me. I'm like, great, good for you. But you know what I became aware of? If I do 200 deals in a calendar year, is it possible to have everybody love me? No. At least 20 of them are not going to be pleased. And is that my intention? No. Have you ever had people like me that no matter what you do, they're never happy? You bend over backwards, you cut their lawn, you give up some of your commission, you're like, damn it, it should have been more. You ever? Yeah? Yeah. Right? So it's getting over, like I was giving a talk and there was a lady in the room and she was like very displeased with what I was saying. I could tell body language. She's like, everything I'm saying, right? I said, okay, I like had enough of that. I'm like, oh, can you stand up, please? She's like, sure. I'm like, what's your name? She's like, Susie. I'm like, great. I'm gonna ask you some questions. My intention in asking is not to be a jerk, okay? I think it'd just be helpful for the people in the room. Other people would benefit from it, including you. How many deals do you do? It was like 30. Good for you. In any office in the country, you're in the top. The office that I left had 130 agents, 9 made more than $100,000 a year. Listen to what I just said to you. No matter how much Instagram and your little pictures of your home sold, 9 made more than $100,000 a year. That means everybody else is starving to death. You understand that? And the spread was ridiculous. 6 made like right at 100, 1 made like 300, 600, then your boy. Huge spread, right? So I told her, I'm like, if you're doing 30 deals in any office, you're like the top agent or one of them. And they're putting you on panels and asking you to teach classes. Okay, good. I said, I'm imagining, because she was like, oh, you don't go to closings? I'm like, nope. She gave a transaction coordinator and they talk to him for the majority of the time once it goes pending. I'm like, yep. She's like, you don't go to like home inspections? Nope. You don't go to walkthroughs? Nope. And everything I was saying was bothering her. So I'm like, it's clear to me based on what you're saying, like we have a different philosophy. Now I'm also imagining based on what you're saying to me, the majority of your deals will pass client centers of influence. She's like, yes, kind of like, how did you know that? I'm also imagining that you do everything. You mother them. You hover over them. She was like, yes, look in the back. Yep. And I said, I need you to understand something. The difference between me and you is that I know that if Jesus showed up here right now, somebody wouldn't like his hair. Somebody wouldn't like his beard. Somebody definitely wouldn't like the color of his skin. It is, as your audience expands, it's impossible to make everybody happy. The intention isn't to make them unhappy, but it's impossible to do that. I'm okay with doing 200 deals and having 20 people not like me at the end of the year. You're not. And until you become okay with that, you'll be stuck at 30 deals for the rest of your life. You can sit down now. Is anything that I just said not true? It's a fact. This gets in the way, the supervisor. Hovering. Have a TC, but are in the emails, watching what's going on and answering them. Jumping in when you're not even needed. Do you know why part of the reason why we do that? Because we make so much money, we're trying to justify how much money we make. We create drama. Oh my God, you won't believe it almost fell apart. You won't believe it. Oh, I saved it. I saved it. You have nothing to worry about. We're just trying to justify how much money we make. Like, I have no problem making a lot of money, okay? You don't like it? Go get your real estate license and figure out how to do it. I'm fine with it, right? So this can keep people stuck for an extended period of time.
When you help someone, you feel maybe 100 times better than making a paycheck.
100%.
I got a stack of paychecks in my car right now that I haven't cashed.
I don't even give a crap.
I've had students or people where they're like, Brian,
I was literally in a broken down car.
what the hell am I gonna